Hey everyone, Ace here. Today we're continuing on with the fanfiction Someone Like You by Sparkly Pesker. I am so sorry if I butcher names on fanfics, the ones who wrote them. The lovely authors that are letting me do this. They are so awesome. Thank you again to all the authors. Anywho, on with the fanfic. Chapter 4. Something might have been in the air when Izuku returned to school the next day. He was actually left alone, for the most part. Really, the most that happened was other students purposely bumping into him. Izuku was usually able to keep a hold of his books, but there were a few times where they were forced out of his hands. That was usually followed by the textbooks being kicked further down the hall. And, of course, this resulted in him spending more time finding and picking up his materials, and made him slightly late for class. The teachers would either ignore him or scowl at him. They rarely did much else, claiming that it took too much of their valuable time to care. Too much of their valuable time to care about if Izuku was there or not. After one of those particular classes, Izuku was asked to hang back after class. He walked up to the teacher's desk and stood silently, waiting for them to acknowledge his existence. This particular teacher was notorious. This particular teacher was notoriously known for holding a particularly petty grudge against Izuku. This stemmed from him actually grading his work a few times. He couldn't believe Izuku had gotten all the answers correct and spent nearly a month trying to figure out how Izuku was cheating. Needless to say, he was never able to find anything. That didn't stop the teacher from trying to trip him up occasionally by giving him work well beyond what the rest of the class was learning, or giving Izuku guidelines far more strict than his classmates were assigned. When they realized nothing they were doing was getting the result they were looking for, they took to wasting Izuku's time and punishing him for the slightest imagined infraction instead. If Izuku spoke or moved while waiting to be acknowledged, he was being distracting. He had gotten so much detention over the years. So this whole song and dance of standing perfectly still and waiting for them to finish grading the papers they were working on was nothing new. In fact, Izuku thought maybe this would be a good chance to work on his meditation. He couldn't move or do anything anyways, so he might as well get some benefit out of having to stand here. After about half an hour, the teacher finally put away the last of their paperwork and looked at Izuku. The sudden change in movement pulled Izuku back from the I am sorry, I cannot read for the life of me, but I really want to do this. Preceptive of enlightenment, or at at least that's what it felt like. You know what? I'm going to start doing something. I'm going to put the words I cannot say for the life of me into the description, so maybe someone can actually help me. Let's just write the note as... Sure, let's go with that. I also lost where I am. Or at least that's what it felt like. And when your brain is constantly buzzing, even when you aren't trying to think of anything, having it cleared damn near felt like finding God. The only thing is that it was incredibly difficult for Izuku to actually shut off his brain. He had only been able to achieve it a total of one time, and he was already addicted. He was going to have to look up other meditation methods. I'm sorry, I just watched Criminal Minds. I'm pretty sure everyone knows where my brain went to. Maybe the one he had been using was wrong for him, in one way or another. So, I saw that you turned in a new post-graduation form, the teacher said, his fingers crossed and sitting on the desk in front of him. That's right, Izuku replied. The teacher hummed. I guess you finally realized there's no way someone like you is going to be a hero. I'm glad you're being more realistic. Maybe we should give a medal to whomever it was that finally beat it into that thick head of yours. He gave a mocking smile. Izuku didn't say anything in response. Nothing he said was going to be taken seriously anyways. He would just be punished for saying anything in his defense. He had no choice but to stand there and take whatever verbal vitriol spewed from his teacher's mouth. Every word cracked against Izuku's defenses. Normally anything they said just slid off his back, never bothering him much. He supposed that was what happened when you hear it so often. But today, after what Izuku had learned, he wanted to fight back, to put the people in this school in their place. He bit the inside of his lip to keep quiet. If he said anything, made even a single sound, he would be put into detention for the rest of his time in this God-forsaken school. He would end up being fired from his job. Inko would guarantee he be put on house arrest. There would be absolutely no way he would be able to become a crime fighter anytime soon. And Izuku couldn't wait. If he waited any longer, he would be even further behind people his age. He had a timeline to keep, so he stood there, silently listening as the teacher tried tearing Izuku's shields, bit by bit. By the time Izuku was finally allowed to leave, he had cuts inside his mouth. The metallic tang of blood filled his mouth and coated his teeth. He left the school, spitting a glob of blood on the ground. he would have to find some water and wash his mouth out as best he could before having to go to work. He was positive that greeting customers with a bloody smile would get him kicked out instantly. Movement out of the corner of his eye put Izuku on alert. He whipped his head to the side, instantly on guard. Furious ruby red eyes, framed by spiked blonde hair, met his. He should be surprised that Bakugo Katsuki had been waiting for him, but he wasn't. They grew up together. Izuku had even called him Ka-chan at one point, but not anymore. Not since they were four. Bakugo had decided Izuku made a better punching bag than friend. Even now, the sight of Bakugo set Izuku's fight or flight response soaring. His heart rate and welcome to my life. I can't say it. His heart rate and repetitions dramatically increased, attempting to provide his body with more oxygen to make him escape. "You're giving up? That's it? You're done?" Bakugo yelled. Izuku's muscles tensed up, preparing to bolt. Running didn't always work, but it was the only option Izuku had today. "Well, why do you care?" Izuku stuttered. It's not like you wanted me to go to UA anyways. I changed it because I was afraid you would I changed it because I was afraid you would kill me if I showed up. Not exactly a lie. Izuku was positive that if Bakugo saw him at the entrance exams, he would attempt to kill him. And Izuku was not 100% sure that anyone there would stop him. But Izuku was not going to antagonize Bakugo by telling him Izuku had other options. Bakugo crouched down. Bakugo crouched down with his hands out and palms up, sparks and pops jumping from his hands, the memories of those hands burning their way to the front of his mind. He flinched back. "You're damn right I would, Deku!" Bakugo screamed. "I don't understand," he said clearly, devoid of any stutter. "Why are you okay with this?" Izuku couldn't stop his mouth even if he tried. His shields were breaking. He had enough of being treated like this. He just wanted to defend himself for once, to talk back, and so he did. "I'm quirkless. I can't be a villain. That makes me a civilian. And you call yourself a hero?" Izuku's voice rose with each syllable until finally he was screaming. I am afraid of you, gently afraid that you would kill me for doing nothing more than going to school. Tears of frustration pooled in Izuku's eyes and poured down his cheeks. What kind of hero has civilians scared of them? Civilians aren't scared of Endeavor. The hero was the most villains' casualties. Because they know he didn't go after them on purpose. He's just neglectful. But you purposely stalk and murder a civilian just because they're trying to get a better education, a better life, because they want to help people. Izuku's throat closed up. He coughed, trying to clear it. He can't remember the last time he screamed like that. Maybe he never had, if the pain in his throat was anything to go by. There's pain in my throat for doing that, damn. Bakugo stood there, no longer crouched, and hands laid still and silent at his sides. His eyes were wide and mouth slightly open. Izuku took his silence as an opportunity to flee. He didn't want to be around Bakugo for any longer than absolutely necessary. Izuku ran to the cafe. When he got to the block, he ducked into the alley behind the cafe, hands on his knees and breathing heavily. He checked the time on his phone. Between the teacher holding him back and the interaction with Bakugo, had he decided to walk, he would have definitely been late. As it stood, he had 5 minutes before his shift was scheduled to start. He would barely have enough time to clean up. He entered the back door to the cafe and went to the employee's restroom, next door to the office. He looked in the mirror above the sink. He looked horrible. He was sweaty and had flecks of blood decorating his lips. First things first, Izuku turned on the sink and used his hands to pull some water. He slurped it out of his palms and switched it around in his mouth and spit it out. He repeated this until the water came out clean. Clearer. Then he quickly took his school jacket and white shirt and redressed He then quickly took off his school jacket and white shirt, then redressed using a white shirt he kept in his bag. His uniform had been dirtied and damaged more than once. If his uniform wasn't spotless, it was detention for him. So he had taken to carrying 1 or 2 shirts around with him. Once redressed, Izuku deemed himself presentable at the least. Once redressed, Izuku deemed himself presentable at the least and left the bathroom. So, it looks like you showed up, the boss said, looking at his watch. And the boss said, looking at her watch. And just in time, too. It looks like you get to stick around after all. The boss walked over to the hooks next to the back door and pulls a white apron off the hook. You can hang your bag up here and put on this apron and head to the front. You can hang your bag here, put on this apron and head up front. Izuku follows her instructions and walks to the front of the cafe. Once there, the boss quickly showed Izuku how to run the register and where supplies are located. Remember, you're not to go out front. You are to stay behind the counter. If I see you take one step, you're done. Gone." Izuku nodded. Boss gave him a suspicious glare and left for the kitchen. Izuku had smelt a sweetness coming from the kitchen. He assumed it was pastries for the after-school crowd. He had seen groups of friends going to small restaurants and cafes like this after school, but had never actually been a part of the custom. Jiro was working again that day. Izuku saw her take a glance at his shoes, and recognition in her eyes. Izuku went on the defensive, ready to take whatever was going to be thrown at him. "So, do you want to learn how to make a drink?" she asked. Izuku nearly stumbled in shock. He knows that she knows he's quirkless, but he didn't know why she wasn't saying anything. Jiro continued speaking in his silence. "We're allowed one free drink per shift. I haven't made mine yet, so if you want, you can make both of ours and learn how to use the machines." "Yeah, that sounds good," Izuku said slowly. He walked to the machine. Jiro showed him how to grind the beans, measure out the grounds, and where the cafe recipe book was. After shifting through the recipes, Izuku decided he wanted a caramel mochino. Mochino? I don't know how to say coffee drinks, apparently. Machinto? I'm sure you guys understand. I hope. He didn't often get sweets, and even though he was supposed to eat healthier, deciding this wasn't going to be enough to throw him off his diet, especially if he was only going to make himself a small serving. Jiro chose an Americano for that day. She mentioned she preferred her drinks with a little more... She mentioned she preferred drinks that were a little more bitter. Izuku scrunched up his nose. "Why haven't you said anything about my shoes yet?" Izuku asked quietly while following the directions in the recipe book. He glanced back and forth from the machine a few times, making sure he hadn't forgotten something. "What's there to say? You're quirkless. That's all there is to it," she replied. Izuku didn't understand. No one ever just ignored his quirklessness, but that is exactly what Jiro is doing. He didn't like her answer. He didn't understand. He didn't trust it. Jiro must have seen the doubt in Izuku's features because she explained further. "My father's quirkless." Izuku whipped his head around at her and nearly spilling his coffee. "What?" he asked quietly in disbelief. "My father's quirkless. He composes music for a living. My mother is a musician, so they work together. My dad writes and my mom sings. They have become pretty popular and made a decent living doing what they love." Jiro smiled at Izuku. "They are the ones who taught me that quirkless people can do anything they put their minds to." Izuku teared up for the second time that day. He rubbed his eyes against the fabric on his shoulder, trying to dry up his eyes. After a little sniffle and a deep breath, he composed himself and smiled back at her. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Izuku finished their drinks just in time for the after-school rush to start. He smiled at his first customer, ready to take his first steps towards his dreams. And that is the end of Chapter 4. Chapter 5 will be up next, and I hope you guys are still enjoying this. I'm going to read the first little bit of Chapter 5 so you can know what's coming up. Bakugo ignored Izuku after the confrontation. The rest of the students seemed to follow his lead, if a little confused as to why. So, and I still love this. And I have a little announcement, actually. I am actually writing 3 fan fictions. You guys know one of them, which is his treasure and my dragon. Which is the My Hero Academia fan fiction. Obviously, since I already posted 2-3 episodes. 2. I only posted 2. The next 2 are Criminal Minds. One is a crossover, and that one is called How You Turned My World Upside Down. It is a crossover with Supernatural, and I will say this right now, right here, it is a Morgan Sam love interest. Morgan and Sam are going to get together. It's going to be kind of obvious. The second one is One Step at a Time, and that I'm going to say here now is a Spencer Aaron love interest. If you guys don't like those 2 pairings, you guys can not listen to them. I am still going to post them though, just for the fun of it. I am planning on more. I am going to be very blunt on this. I am planning a My Hero Academia polyamory one. It is going to most likely be Izuku, Shinzo, and Denki. And it is going to be sort of based off of Sam Solved This, one of their little stories, because it is just so fucking cute. Anywho, until next time, again, Chapter 5 will be posted up sometime next week. And KG is going to be posted. Chapter 2 is going to be posted after this one is posted, and Chapter 3 will be posted next week. Not next week. Yeah, I guess it would be next week. Jeez, I'm babbling now. Until next time, peace out. Stay hydrated and eat donuts.